Welcome to Fremma Audiobooks, a place created for thoughtful minds who seek not just success, but understanding, not just progress, but meaning, because true growth begins when knowledge deepens into wisdom. If you have ever felt uncertain about direction, overwhelmed by choices, or searching for clarity in the midst of responsibility and ambition, this audiobook was created for you, because wisdom is what turns experience into insight and insight into steady guidance. Today's audiobook is titled Wisdom: Life Lessons for Growth, Clarity and Direction, and it is a reflective journey through powerful life lessons that shape perspective, strengthen character, and provide clarity when decisions feel complex or uncertain. This audiobook explores how wisdom develops through experience, patience, reflection, and self-awareness, and how it becomes the quiet compass that guides growth, strengthens resilience, and brings balance to both ambition and fulfillment. Before we begin, we invite you to subscribe to Fremma Audiobooks, like this audiobook, share it with someone who values growth and clarity, and leave a comment telling us where you are listening from, because your support allows this channel to continue creating meaningful audiobooks that encourage thoughtful living and steady progress.
Strengthens resilience and brings balance to both ambition and fulfillment. Before we begin, we invite you to subscribe to Fremma Audiobooks, like this audiobook, share it with someone who values growth and clarity, and leave a comment telling us where you are listening from, because your support allows this channel to continue creating meaningful audiobooks that encourage thoughtful living and steady progress.
Before we move deeper into the lessons that shape clarity and direction, it is important to understand that this audiobook is thoughtfully structured into 8 connected chapters, each one designed to guide you through different dimensions of wisdom so that growth becomes intentional rather than accidental. Every chapter builds upon the previous one, allowing reflection to mature gradually, because wisdom is not absorbed instantly, but cultivated through careful understanding, experience, and awareness over time. Chapter 1. The Nature of Wisdom: Why True Growth Begins with Understanding. In this chapter we explore what wisdom truly is, how it differs from knowledge and intelligence, why it develops through reflection and experience rather than information alone, and how understanding its nature provides clarity, emotional balance, and stronger decision-making in every area of life. Wisdom is often confused with intelligence or the accumulation of facts, yet it is something far deeper and more subtle, because while knowledge informs the mind, wisdom guides judgment, shapes perspective, and determines how information is applied in real situations. Many intelligent people struggle in life not because they lack knowledge, but because they lack the reflective depth that transforms knowledge into meaningful direction. Information without reflection remains shallow. Shallow understanding leads to reactive decisions. Reactive decisions create unnecessary conflict. Wisdom slows reaction. Slowing reaction creates space for discernment. Discernment improves judgment. Judgment shapes outcomes. This distinction explains why wisdom is foundational to growth. Unlike intelligence, which can be measured by speed of learning or problem-solving ability, wisdom reveals itself through patience, humility, and balanced thinking, especially in moments of uncertainty or emotional tension. Wisdom considers consequences beyond immediate outcomes. It weighs long-term impact over short-term satisfaction. This expanded perspective reduces impulsive behavior. Reduced impulsivity protects relationships. Protected relationships strengthen stability. Stability supports growth. Growth becomes sustainable rather than chaotic. Wisdom develops gradually through lived experience because challenges, mistakes, and reflection refine understanding in ways that theory alone cannot accomplish. Experience exposes assumptions. Exposed assumptions invite reconsideration. Reconsideration deepens insight. Insight improves choices. Improved choices shape stronger habits. Stronger habits reinforce clarity. Over time, lessons accumulate into guidance. Self-awareness is central to wisdom because understanding one's own strengths, weaknesses, emotions, and tendencies prevents blind spots from controlling behavior unconsciously. Without awareness, patterns repeat automatically. Repeated patterns limit growth. Awareness interrupts cycles. Interruption creates choice. Choice restores direction. Direction clarifies purpose. Wisdom begins internally before it shapes the external world. Another essential aspect of wisdom is emotional regulation, because the ability to remain calm during difficulty allows clearer thinking and more balanced responses. Emotional reactivity distorts perception. Distorted perception leads to conflict. Wisdom stabilizes emotion. Stability improves communication. Improved communication strengthens trust. Trust fosters meaningful progress. Emotional balance supports clarity. Wisdom also involves humility, because recognizing the limits of one's knowledge opens the door to continuous learning and prevents rigid thinking that often leads to stagnation. Humility encourages curiosity. Curiosity deepens understanding. Deeper understanding refines judgment. Refined judgment strengthens decisions. Decisions align more closely with long-term values. Perspective plays a powerful role in wisdom because understanding context reduces unnecessary worry and prevents minor setbacks from being exaggerated into major failures. Perspective restores proportion. Proportion reduces stress. Reduced stress improves focus. Focus supports better choices. Wisdom keeps life balanced. Ultimately, wisdom is not about having all the answers, but about asking better questions, reflecting honestly, and choosing thoughtfully in moments that shape direction. This chapter establishes the foundation for the journey ahead. Because before wisdom can guide growth and clarity, it must first be understood as a lifelong practice rather than a destination. Now that we understand wisdom as more than knowledge and recognize it as a practice rooted in reflection and balanced judgment, the next step is turning inward, because clarity in life rarely begins with controlling circumstances but with understanding oneself more honestly and deeply. In this chapter, we explore how self-awareness and reflection become the inner path to growth, direction, and emotional maturity. Chapter 2. Self-awareness and reflection, the inner path to clarity. In this chapter, we explore how self-awareness forms the foundation of wisdom, why reflection transforms experience into insight, and how understanding your thoughts, emotions, patterns, and motivations provides clarity that strengthens growth and direction over time. Self-awareness begins with the willingness to observe oneself honestly, because without the courage to examine thoughts, behaviors, and emotional reactions, growth remains limited by unconscious patterns that quietly shape decisions and relationships. Many people move through life reacting rather than reflecting, repeating habits without questioning their origins or consequences. Repetition without awareness reinforces limitation. Limitation restricts potential. Awareness interrupts automatic behavior. Interruption creates space for choice. Choice enables change. Change strengthens growth. Growth deepens wisdom. This inner observation is the beginning of clarity. Reflection transforms daily experiences into meaningful lessons. Because without deliberate thought, even significant events can pass without contributing to deeper understanding. Experience alone does not guarantee growth. Growth requires interpretation. Interpretation demands honesty. Honest reflection reveals patterns. Choice enables change. Change strengthens growth. Growth deepens wisdom. This inner observation is the beginning of clarity. Reflection transforms daily experiences into meaningful lessons. Because without deliberate thought, even significant events can pass without contributing to deeper understanding. Experience alone does not guarantee growth. Growth requires interpretation. Interpretation demands honesty. Honest reflection reveals patterns. Patterns expose strengths and weaknesses. Recognizing these patterns allows improvement. Improvement strengthens character. Character shapes direction. Emotional awareness is a vital dimension of self-awareness because emotions influence perception more strongly than many realize. And without recognizing their impact, individuals often mistake temporary feelings for permanent truths. Unexamined emotions distort judgment. Distorted judgment leads to misaligned decisions. Awareness restores perspective. Perspective reduces impulsivity. Reduced impulsivity supports thoughtful action. Thoughtful action aligns with long-term values. Emotional clarity strengthens stability. Understanding personal values is another essential aspect of reflection because values guide decisions even when they are not consciously acknowledged, shaping priorities, boundaries, and relationships. Awareness restores perspective. Perspective reduces impulsivity. Reduced impulsivity supports thoughtful action. Thoughtful action aligns with long-term values. Emotional clarity strengthens stability. Understanding personal values is another essential aspect of reflection because values guide decisions even when they are not consciously acknowledged, shaping priorities, boundaries, and relationships. When values are unclear, direction feels uncertain. Uncertainty breeds hesitation. Hesitation slows growth. Clarified values strengthen conviction. Conviction stabilizes action. Stable action compounds progress. Self-awareness aligns life with purpose. Reflection also reveals limiting beliefs that may have been adopted unconsciously from past experiences, societal expectations, or fear, and these beliefs often restrict potential more than external obstacles ever could. Identifying such beliefs creates freedom. Freedom expands perspective. Expanded perspective encourages new possibilities. Possibility fuels motivation. Growth becomes intentional rather than reactive. Another important lesson within self-awareness is accepting imperfection without surrendering ambition, and these beliefs often restrict potential more than external obstacles ever could. Identifying such beliefs creates freedom. Freedom expands perspective. Expanded perspective encourages new possibilities. Possibility fuels motivation. Growth becomes intentional rather than reactive. Another important lesson within self-awareness is accepting imperfection without surrendering ambition, because acknowledging flaws honestly prevents denial while encouraging steady improvement without self-condemnation. Acceptance reduces internal conflict. Reduced conflict preserves energy. Energy supports focus. Focus strengthens development. Development reinforces confidence. Confidence supports resilience. Self-awareness deepens relationships because understanding one's communication patterns and emotional triggers improves empathy and reduces unnecessary misunderstanding. Empathy fosters trust. Trust strengthens connection. Strong connections provide support. Support enhances stability. Stability sustains growth. Wisdom extends outward from internal clarity. Ultimately, self-awareness and reflection create an internal compass that guides decisions, strengthens emotional maturity, and clarifies long-term direction, ensuring that growth is not accidental but and aligned with deeper understanding. This chapter reinforces that clarity in life begins within, because without understanding yourself, it is difficult to navigate the complexities of the world with wisdom and balance. As self-awareness deepens and reflection begins to illuminate personal patterns and values, the next layer of wisdom emerges through perspective, because growth is shaped not only by how we understand ourselves, but by how we interpret the world and our place within it. In this chapter, we explore how perspective and patience expand clarity, reduce unnecessary struggle, and allow life to be approached with steadiness rather than urgency. Chapter 3. Perspective and Patience, Seeing Life Through a Wider Lens. In this chapter, we explore how perspective transforms challenges into lessons, why patience strengthens judgment and emotional stability, and how seeing life through a wider lens provides clarity that protects long-term growth and direction. Perspective is the quiet power that determines whether circumstances feel overwhelming or manageable. Chapter 3. Perspective and Patience, Seeing Life Through a Wider Lens. In this chapter, we explore how perspective transforms challenges into lessons, why patience strengthens judgment and emotional stability, and how seeing life through a wider lens provides clarity that protects long-term growth and direction. Perspective is the quiet power that determines whether circumstances feel overwhelming or manageable, because events themselves rarely define experience as much as the interpretation assigned to them. When perspective is narrow, small setbacks appear catastrophic. Catastrophe triggers fear. Fear distorts thinking. Distorted thinking leads to impulsive decisions. Wisdom widens perspective. A widened view restores proportion. Proportion reduces emotional intensity. Reduced intensity supports clarity, because events themselves rarely define experience as much as the interpretation assigned to them. When perspective is narrow, small setbacks appear catastrophic. Catastrophe triggers fear. Fear distorts thinking. Distorted thinking leads to impulsive decisions. Wisdom widens perspective. A widened view restores proportion. Proportion reduces emotional intensity. Reduced intensity supports clarity. Clarity strengthens direction. This shift changes the quality of life profoundly. Patience is deeply connected to perspective because understanding that growth unfolds gradually reduces the pressure to force immediate outcomes, which often leads to frustration and premature decisions. Impatience amplifies doubt. Doubt weakens confidence. Weak confidence disrupts progress. Patience stabilizes emotion. Stable emotion supports consistent effort. Consistent effort compounds results. Over time, patience protects direction from short-term discouragement. A wider perspective also reveals that difficulties are rarely isolated incidents but part of broader patterns of development, which means setbacks can serve as preparation rather than obstruction when viewed thoughtfully. Viewing hardship as preparation transforms resistance into acceptance. Acceptance reduces conflict. Reduced conflict preserves energy. Energy sustains growth. Growth becomes meaningful rather than chaotic. Perspective encourages humility because recognizing the complexity of life reduces the tendency to judge others or oneself too harshly, allowing room for learning and understanding instead of rigid conclusions. Humility opens dialogue. Dialogue fosters empathy. Empathy strengthens connection. Acceptance reduces conflict. Reduced conflict preserves energy. Energy sustains growth. Growth becomes meaningful rather than chaotic. Perspective encourages humility because recognizing the complexity of life reduces the tendency to judge others or oneself too harshly, allowing room for learning and understanding instead of rigid conclusions. Humility opens dialogue. Dialogue fosters empathy. Empathy strengthens connection. Strong connection supports stability. Stability nurtures clarity. Wisdom matures through openness. Another vital insight is that perspective reshapes comparison, because understanding that each individual's path unfolds differently prevents unnecessary envy and discouragement. Comparison without context distorts reality. Distortion weakens gratitude. Weak gratitude reduces contentment. Perspective restores appreciation. Appreciation strengthens balance. Balanced living supports steady growth. Patience also fosters resilience because recognizing that temporary discomfort does not define long-term outcome prevents emotional overreaction to moments of difficulty. Overreaction drains energy. Drained energy slows recovery. Patience preserves strength. Preserved strength accelerates adaptation. Adaptation strengthens character. Character supports wisdom. Time itself becomes an ally when perspective is expanded, because understanding that many meaningful achievements require sustained effort encourages endurance rather than constant reevaluation. Endurance builds discipline. Discipline stabilizes direction. Direction sustains momentum. Momentum compounds achievement. Perspective aligns effort with realistic timelines. Ultimately, perspective and patience work together to create emotional steadiness and long-term clarity, ensuring that decisions are guided by understanding rather than urgency. This chapter reinforces that wisdom grows when life is viewed through a wider lens, because seeing beyond the immediate moment allows growth to unfold with balance, resilience, and thoughtful intention. As perspective widens and patience steadies emotional response, wisdom begins to express itself most clearly through the quality of decisions we make, because direction in life is shaped not by intention alone, but by choices repeated over time. In this chapter, we explore how wise decision-making develops, how consequences become teachers rather than punishments, and how clarity strengthens the paths we choose. Chapter 4: Decision-making and Consequences, Choosing with Clarity. In this chapter, we explore how wisdom improves decision-making, why understanding consequences deepens responsibility, and how thoughtful choices shape growth, stability, and long-term direction more powerfully than impulse or pressure ever could. Every decision, no matter how small, influences the direction of life in ways that are often invisible at first, because choices accumulate gradually into habits, relationships, opportunities, and outcomes that reflect patterns of judgment rather than isolated moments. When decisions are made impulsively, consequences often feel surprising. Surprises create stress. Stress clouds thinking. Clouded thinking leads to repeated mistakes. Wisdom slows the process. Slowing creates space. Space allows evaluation. Evaluation improves judgment. Judgment shapes direction. Understanding consequences is central to wise decision-making because every action carries both immediate and delayed effects, and recognizing these layers reduces the temptation to prioritize short-term comfort over long-term stability. Short-term thinking sacrifices future clarity. Future clarity protects growth. Growth strengthens resilience. Resilience supports stability. Stability allows freedom. Freedom enhances purpose. Wisdom connects present action to future outcome thoughtfully. Emotional awareness strengthens decisions because recognizing feelings without allowing them to dominate reasoning preserves clarity even in difficult situations. Emotional dominance distorts perspective. Distortion weakens alignment with values. Awareness restores balance. Balance improves choice. Choice supports direction. Direction stabilizes life. Wisdom integrates emotion and reason carefully. External influence often complicates decisions because societal pressure, comparison, and expectation can distort personal priorities if self-awareness is weak. Weak self-awareness leads to misalignment. Misalignment creates dissatisfaction. Wisdom clarifies values. Clear values guide choice. Guided choice strengthens integrity. Integrity stabilizes direction. Life becomes intentional rather than reactive. Reflection after decisions also strengthens wisdom because evaluating outcomes honestly transforms experience into learning rather than repeating error unconsciously. Honest reflection identifies patterns. Patterns reveal strengths and weaknesses. Recognition encourages adjustment. Adjustment improves future decisions. Improvement compounds over time. Patience within decision-making prevents urgency from overpowering clarity, because many mistakes arise not from ignorance but from rushing conclusions without sufficient reflection. Slowing restores perspective. Perspective reduces error. Reduced error strengthens confidence. Confidence supports thoughtful action. Wisdom values timing as much as choice itself. Ultimately, wise decision-making transforms life from a series of reactions into a deliberate path shaped by clarity, responsibility, and thoughtful awareness of consequences. This chapter reinforces that direction in life is not found accidentally, but constructed gradually through repeated, conscious choices aligned with values and understanding. As decision-making becomes clearer and responsibility strengthens through understanding consequences, life inevitably presents challenges that test not only judgment, but emotional endurance and inner balance. In this chapter, we'll explore how resilience and acceptance transform adversity into growth, and how wisdom deepens not in comfort, but in how we respond to difficulty. Chapter 5: Resilience and Acceptance, Growing Through Adversity. In this chapter, we explore how resilience develops through acceptance rather than resistance, why adversity refines character and perspective, and how embracing life's challenges with awareness and balance strengthens long-term growth and clarity. Adversity is often viewed as an interruption to growth rather than a catalyst for it. Yet wisdom reveals that difficulty frequently shapes strength more effectively than ease ever could, because comfort rarely challenges assumptions or expands perspective. When hardship appears, resistance is natural. Resistance increases tension. Tension clouds clarity. Clouded clarity weakens response. Wisdom introduces acceptance. Acceptance reduces internal conflict. Reduced conflict restores energy. Energy supports adaptation. Adaptation fosters resilience. This shift transforms adversity into development. Acceptance does not mean passivity or surrender, but recognition of reality without denial. because fighting what cannot be changed wastes energy that could otherwise support thoughtful adjustment and creative response. Denial delays growth. Delay increases frustration. Frustration weakens patience. Wisdom confronts reality calmly. Calm restores perspective. Perspective supports problem solving. Problem solving strengthens confidence. Confidence fuels resilience. Resilience grows when setbacks are interpreted as temporary rather than permanent, because believing that difficulty defines identity or future possibility discourages effort and diminishes hope. Hope sustains effort. Effort rebuilds progress. Progress restores belief. Wisdom reframes failure as feedback. Feedback guides improvement. Improvement strengthens character. Character supports growth. This mindset protects clarity during challenge. Emotional endurance also strengthens resilience because the ability to remain composed during stress prevents overreaction and impulsive decision-making that often worsens circumstances unnecessarily. Emotional balance preserves judgment. Preserved judgment improves response. Improved response accelerates recovery. Recovery strengthens confidence. Confidence reinforces resilience. Wisdom stabilizes emotion without suppressing it. Another lesson within adversity is humility, because recognizing vulnerability fosters compassion toward oneself and others, deepening connection and reducing isolation during difficult periods. Compassion softens self-criticism. Reduced self-criticism preserves motivation. Motivation supports perseverance. Perseverance compounds growth. Wisdom turns hardship into empathy. Perspective also strengthens resilience because understanding that suffering is part of the human experience reduces the sense of injustice that often magnifies pain beyond proportion. Perspective restores proportion. Proportion reduces despair. Reduced despair preserves hope. Hope sustains action. Action accelerates healing. Wisdom anchors stability. Growth through adversity often leads to clearer priorities because challenges reveal what truly matters and what can be released without regret. Clarity reduces distraction. Reduced distraction strengthens focus. Focus supports direction. Direction stabilizes progress. Wisdom simplifies life through hardship. Ultimately, resilience and acceptance transform difficulty into refinement, allowing adversity to deepen understanding rather than diminish confidence. This chapter reinforces that wisdom is strengthened not by avoiding hardship, but by meeting it with steadiness, reflection, and balanced courage. As resilience grows through acceptance and adversity begins to refine rather than weaken character, the deeper question naturally arises of how to live not merely in reaction to circumstances, but with intention and direction shaped by understanding. In this chapter, we explore how purpose provides clarity in complexity, and how living deliberately transforms wisdom into meaningful action. Chapter 6. Purpose and Direction, Living with Intention. In this chapter, we explore how purpose anchors life in meaning, why clarity of direction strengthens growth and emotional balance, and how living with intention allows wisdom to guide choices, relationships, and long-term fulfillment. Purpose gives life coherence because it connects daily effort to a larger narrative, transforming routine actions into meaningful contributions rather than isolated tasks performed without direction. When purpose is unclear, motivation drifts. Drifting motivation weakens discipline. Weak discipline disrupts consistency. Wisdom clarifies values. Clarified values shape priorities. Priorities guide action. Guided action strengthens identity. Identity stabilizes direction. Life gains structure and meaning through intentional alignment. Living with intention requires reflection because purpose cannot be borrowed from others without creating misalignment between external expectation and internal conviction. Misalignment generates dissatisfaction. Dissatisfaction weakens focus. Weak focus reduces fulfillment. Wisdom encourages honest evaluation of personal values and aspirations. Honest evaluation clarifies goals. Clear goals strengthen commitment. Commitment sustains effort. Effort compounds growth over time. Purpose also simplifies decision-making because when long-term direction is clear, choices can be evaluated against that vision rather than emotional impulse or temporary reward. Clear vision reduces hesitation. Reduced hesitation accelerates action. Accelerated action builds momentum. Momentum sustains progress. Wisdom transforms uncertainty into alignment. Another dimension of intentional living is recognizing that purpose evolves because growth changes perspective and priorities, and rigid attachment to outdated goals can limit further development. Flexibility preserves authenticity. Authenticity strengthens fulfillment. Fulfillment stabilizes commitment. Commitment supports steady progress. Wisdom adapts purpose thoughtfully rather than abandoning it impulsively. Living with direction also enhances resilience because when challenges arise, meaningful purpose provides context that makes struggle feel worthwhile rather than arbitrary. Context reduces despair. Reduced despair strengthens endurance. Endurance preserves clarity. Clarity improves response. Wisdom sustains hope during difficulty. Purpose deepens relationships because clarity of direction fosters authenticity and shared understanding. allowing connections to be built on mutual respect rather than superficial expectation. Authentic connection strengthens support. Support stabilizes growth. Growth reinforces confidence. Wisdom nurtures meaningful bonds. Intentional living also cultivates gratitude because recognizing progress within the context of purpose encourages appreciation for the journey rather than obsession with comparison or status. Gratitude reduces envy. Reduced envy strengthens contentment. Contentment stabilizes emotion. Emotional balance supports clarity. Wisdom integrates ambition with appreciation. Ultimately, purpose and direction transform wisdom from reflection into lived experience, ensuring that growth is guided by clarity rather than circumstance. This chapter reinforces that a life lived intentionally is not free from challenge, but grounded in meaning, resilience, and steady commitment to growth. As purpose clarifies direction and intentional living strengthens personal growth, wisdom naturally extends beyond the individual into relationships, because life is shaped not only by internal reflection, but by the quality of connections we cultivate and the influence we carry into the world. In this chapter we explore how wisdom transforms relationships, deepens empathy, and strengthens the ability to influence others with integrity and understanding. Chapter 7. Relationships and Influence. Wisdom in Connection. In this chapter we explore how wisdom strengthens relationships, why empathy and communication shape meaningful connection, and how thoughtful influence allows growth, clarity, and direction to extend beyond the self into community and shared experience. Relationships form the foundation of human experience because connection provides support, perspective, and shared understanding that no individual can cultivate alone. Yet without wisdom, relationships often become sources of misunderstanding rather than growth. Misunderstanding arises from assumption. Assumption distorts communication. Distorted communication creates conflict. Wisdom encourages listening before reacting. Listening builds empathy. Empathy strengthens trust. Trust stabilizes connection. Connection supports resilience. Through wisdom, relationships become environments for mutual growth. Empathy deepens wisdom because understanding another person's perspective expands awareness beyond personal experience, allowing judgment to soften and compassion to increase. Compassion reduces defensiveness. Reduced defensiveness improves dialogue. Dialogue strengthens clarity. Clarity resolves misunderstanding. Wisdom bridges differences rather than widening them. Communication is central to wise relationships because clarity in expression prevents confusion and reduces emotional escalation during disagreement. Honest communication builds credibility. Credibility fosters respect. Respect strengthens stability. Stability supports openness. Wisdom integrates honesty with kindness, ensuring that truth is delivered with care rather than harm. Boundaries also reflect wisdom because healthy relationships require clarity regarding values, expectations. Clear boundaries reduce tension. Reduced tension preserves energy. Energy supports balanced interaction. Balanced interaction strengthens trust. Wisdom recognizes that boundaries protect connection rather than restrict it. Influence grows naturally from character because consistent integrity inspires trust more effectively than persuasion or pressure ever could. Integrity builds reliability. Reliability strengthens reputation. Reputation expands impact. Wisdom ensures that influence is guided by responsibility rather than ego. Another dimension of relational wisdom is forgiveness because holding resentment prolongs emotional burden and clouds clarity, while thoughtful forgiveness restores balance and frees attention for growth. Forgiveness reduces bitterness. Reduced bitterness preserves emotional health. Emotional health supports stability. Stability strengthens direction. Humility within relationships fosters collaboration because recognizing personal limitations encourages openness to learning and shared insight, enriching understanding beyond individual perspective. Shared insight deepens wisdom. Deeper wisdom enhances decision-making. Improved decisions strengthen bonds. Relationships become partnerships rather than competitions. Ultimately, wisdom in connection transforms relationships into sources of growth, clarity, and shared direction, ensuring that influence is rooted in integrity and empathy rather than control or comparison. This chapter reinforces that true growth is not isolated, but expanded through meaningful relationships guided by thoughtful awareness. As wisdom matures through self-awareness, perspective, resilience, purpose, and connection, the final stage of this journey brings all lessons together into integration because true wisdom is not separate pieces of insight, but a unified way of living that shapes daily thought and action. In this final chapter, we explore how wisdom becomes a lifelong practice that sustains clarity and growth over time. Chapter 8. Living Wisely Every Day. Integrating Growth, Clarity, and Direction. In this chapter, we explore how wisdom becomes a daily practice rather than a collection of lessons, why integration of reflection, perspective, and purpose sustains clarity, and how living wisely shapes a life of steady growth and meaningful direction. Wisdom becomes transformative only when it is integrated into daily life, because isolated insights lose power if they are not applied consistently through thought, speech, and action. Application strengthens understanding. Strengthened understanding stabilizes behavior. Stable behavior shapes character. Character influences relationships. Relationships shape opportunity. Wisdom extends into every dimension of life when lived intentionally. Daily integration begins with mindfulness because awareness of thoughts and emotions allows reflection before reaction, preventing impulsive decisions that undermine clarity. Awareness slows response. Slowed response improves judgment. Improved judgment strengthens direction. Direction supports growth. Wisdom is practiced in small moments, not only major decisions. Consistency in reflective habits such as journaling, thoughtful conversation, or quiet contemplation sustains clarity over time because regular evaluation prevents drift and reinforces alignment with values. Alignment preserves integrity. Integrity strengthens confidence. Confidence stabilizes action. Action compounds growth. Another aspect of living wisely is adaptability because circumstances change and wisdom requires consistency in reflective habits such as journaling, thoughtful conversation, or quiet contemplation sustains clarity over time because regular evaluation prevents drift and reinforces alignment with values. Alignment preserves integrity. Integrity strengthens confidence. Confidence stabilizes action. Action compounds growth. Another aspect of living wisely is adaptability because circumstances change and wisdom requires flexible thinking rather than rigid adherence to past conclusions. Flexibility preserves relevance. Preserved relevance strengthens direction. Direction sustains progress. Wisdom evolves with experience. Gratitude enhances integration because recognizing lessons learned and progress made reinforces appreciation for growth, rather than constant dissatisfaction with imperfection. Appreciation reduces comparison. Reduced comparison strengthens contentment. Contentment stabilizes emotion. Emotional balance supports clarity. Humility sustains lifelong learning because acknowledging that wisdom is never complete encourages continued curiosity and openness to new perspectives. Curiosity deepens understanding. Understanding refines judgment. Refined judgment strengthens decision-making. Growth remains active rather than stagnant. Ultimately, living wisely every day transforms growth into a continuous journey rather than a destination, where clarity guides decisions, resilience strengthens character, and purpose anchors direction. This final chapter reinforces that wisdom is not about perfection, but about consistent reflection, thoughtful action, and balanced living over time. As this audiobook comes to its conclusion, it becomes clear that wisdom is not a single lesson or a final destination, but a lifelong practice of reflection, perspective, patience, and intentional living that shapes growth, clarity, and direction over time. Throughout these 8 chapters, you have explored how wisdom begins with understanding its nature, deepens through self-awareness and reflection, expands through perspective and patience, strengthens, matures through resilience and acceptance, anchors itself in purpose, enriches relationships, and ultimately becomes a daily way of living rather than a rare moment of insight. When these elements are integrated thoughtfully, life becomes less reactive and more deliberate, less chaotic and more aligned, guided not by impulse or comparison but by steady understanding and balanced judgment. If this audiobook encouraged you to reflect more deeply, live more intentionally, or see your experiences through a clearer and more thoughtful lens, we invite you to subscribe to Freema audiobooks like this audiobook and share it with someone who values growth, clarity, and direction in life. Because the right reflection at the right time can quietly transform the course of a journey. We also encourage you to leave a comment and share which chapter or lesson resonated with you most, as your engagement helps this channel continue creating meaningful audiobooks that support thoughtful living and steady personal development. Thank you for listening to Freema Audiobooks, and remember that wisdom is not about knowing everything, but about living each day with awareness, balance, humility, and a sincere commitment to grow.